Well, good morning. This morning you're going to hear from the FAAA Federal Secretary Terry O'Toole, the member for Kingsford Smith, Matt Thistlethwaite, and Upper House MLC New South Wales Mark Buttigieg, as well as myself, Nick McIntosh, the Assistant National Secretary of the TWU. I might ask firstly the FAAA Secretary, Federal Secretary Terry O'Toole to come up and we'll take questions at the end.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you. 2 years ago, about this time, Qantas cabin crew went above and beyond to bring back stranded Australians from Wuhan. They were dressed up as they're dressed now, and they ran towards the fire. They received letters of thanks, as you can see, from Scott Morrison, Alan Joyce. They were heroes, but right now the company is saying they're worth zero. Qantas have made an application to terminate an EBA agreement that protects conditions of cabin crew and has done for many years. The agreement that the company put forward would have severely disadvantaged cabin crew with their time with families. The survey that we did showed the following. 1 in 8 cabin crew have had to move out of their house during the 20-month stand down. Cabin crew were affected more than any other profession by the pandemic. 1 in 9 have suffered a relationship breakdown due to the stand down. 29% had to withdraw from their super just to pay their bills. 39% are worried about how much debt they're actually in. 33% have needed to seek professional or medical help, and tragically 15% have said that they've had suicidal thoughts during this time. They came back to work at Christmas and Qantas said they're all back and we've got work for them. And the week that they came back, they put an enterprise agreement out to vote that was voted down by 97.4% of the cabin crew. While we've, as the union and the members have tried to negotiate in good faith, we've explained to them that the additional standbys that they would put people on would cripple their time with families. 91% of crew have said they voted no to this enterprise agreement because of work-life balance. 61% were concerned that they wouldn't see enough of their children or their partners. And 80% were concerned that they'd have to work longer hours for less money. Cabin crew don't do their jobs for money, they do it because they care. These are the crew that hold the grieving widow's hands. These are the crew that spend hours doing CPR on people that have had a heart attack on an aircraft. This is aviation's first responders, and this is no way to treat your heroes. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Terry. And as Terry said, 2 years ago to the day, a group of brave Australians got on a plane, flew into the middle of a COVID hotspot and rescued Australians from Wuhan. They didn't know the long or short-term effects of COVID yet. Vaccines were a pipe dream, and they knew they were putting themselves at risk of exposure. But they did it for their company, and most of all, they did it for their country and fellow Australians. And they were deservedly thanked by both the Prime Minister of this country and the CEO of this company. And 2 years later to the day, the CEO of this company thanks them by taking a sledgehammer to their wages and conditions. Now, Australians haven't come to expect much out of Qantas management during this pandemic. They stood down a cabin cleaner at the beginning of the pandemic who said he didn't have adequate PPE to clean a plane directly out of China. They denied sick leave to a cancer patient who worked for this company for over 30 years. They illegally outsourced 2,000 ground handlers, and now they want to take a sledgehammer to the wages and conditions of these great Australian cabin crew. Well, enough is enough. There's too much silence from some key people when we think of this company. First and foremost, this board is complicit in 2 years of taking a sledgehammer to this workforce. Where are they? Where is Todd Sampson, who likes to have television shows telling us how we can better ourselves, who wears all these socially progressive t-shirts, yet stands by silently as the CEO of the company he's on the board of takes a sledgehammer to workers? And of course, the Prime Minister, the man that personally thanked these workers 2 years ago. The good time Prime Minister is here for the photo opportunity, but when things get tough, his silence is deafening. Where is he now standing up for these hard-working Australians who put their lives on the line every single day over the last 2 years to rescue other Australians? Where is this Prime Minister when he gives all of this corporate welfare to this company with no strings attached? The CEO of this company boasts that he has the Prime Minister on speed dial, that he dictates government policy in this country. Well, Prime Minister, now is the time to tell us whose side you are on. If you are on the side of hard-working Australians, pick up the phone to Alan Joyce and say, enough is enough. Enough of corporate welfare with no strings attached. Enough of illegally outsourcing ground crew, and enough of slashing the wages and conditions of hard-working Australians who have spent every day of the last 2 years rescuing other Australians from COVID hotspots. Prime Minister, tell the CEO of this company enough is enough, and you are on the side of hard-working Australians. I'll now introduce the federal member for Kingsford Smith, Matt Thistlethwaite.
Thanks, Nick. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Thistlethwaite, the member for Kingsford Smith, and I'm here to support Qantas cabin crew in their fight for justice and a renewed enterprise agreement. Many of these people and these workers live in my electorate, and over the last couple of weeks they've been contacting me, expressing their anguish, their disappointment and their sheer frustration at the approach that Qantas management has taken to the renewal of their enterprise agreement. These are the people that stood by the airline through thick and thin over the last difficult couple of years. When the airline closed during the pandemic, they were stood down. They had to go and get other jobs, but they were ready and willing to work again once the airline got up on its feet. These are the people that risked their health and safety on the repatriation flights to bring Australians home during those difficult periods when we didn't have vaccines and protections like that. And these are the people that have been doing their bit to make sure that the airline gets up and running again and is as profitable as possible in as quick a time as possible. What are the thanks that they get from Qantas management? Well, after a few weeks of negotiations, they're told that they're going to be forced back onto the award, losing wages and conditions, and have their enterprise agreement cancelled. And that is a despicable act from Qantas management, and no thanks at all for the hard work that these loyal workers have shown this company over the last couple of years. Now, I've spoken to both sides on this dispute. I spoke to Qantas management and they outlined to me what the issues were that were standing between agreement. And then I spoke to Terry and the FAAA and many Qantas workers and got their views about the issues that were outstanding. And it's evident to me that they're close to an agreement. The union has agreed to sit down and negotiate and work with Qantas on many of the issues that they want to see around efficiency improvements. So, despite all of that, Qantas is seeking, through the Fair Work Commission, to terminate the agreement and force workers back onto lower wages and conditions. And that's not fair. That's unjust. Qantas should come to the party in good faith and negotiate with these employees, get back around the bargaining table and seek to hammer out an agreement that is there to be made. It's evident to me that Qantas are using this pandemic as an excuse to reduce these loyal workers' wages and conditions and to smash their union. And that is unjust. That is unfair. That is not in the spirit of this great airline, and that is un-Australian. And that's why I've written to Alan Joyce, called on him to get back around the negotiating table and try and hammer out an agreement with these loyal employees. And if that doesn't work, then the Prime Minister and the Minister for Workplace Relations, Michaelia Cash, should intervene in the Fair Work Commission hearing and attempt to ensure that Qantas return to the negotiating table, because the government has a stake in this. The government provided $80 million worth of JobKeeper payments to Qantas to make sure that it got by during this difficult period so that these workers could maintain contact with their employer and ensure that they were ready to go when the restrictions were lifted and the airline could fly again. And that's exactly what they've done. But Qantas have shown bad faith in not appreciating that and not respecting the work of these employees and getting around the bargaining table to hammer out an agreement. So once again, I urge Qantas management to drop this claim of getting rid of the enterprise bargaining agreement and dropping people back to the award, get back around the negotiating table and in good faith try and hammer out agreement with these loyal employees and their union. Thank you.
Well, thanks Matt for those great words, and I'll now introduce Mark Buttigieg, Upper House, a member in New South Wales. Mark.
Thanks Nick. Mark Buttigieg, New South Wales Upper House. I want to start by thanking these loyal Qantas employees who are a few in a long line of people who have been abused by the CEO of this company and the Prime Minister. And I also want to thank their unions who represent them day in and day out. That is the FAAA and the TWU who have coverage in this industry. You would have all been aware of the character assessment that the former Premier Gladys Berejiklian made of our Prime Minister, and that character that she manifested in the media is now on display for all to see again. Let's remember what's happened here over the last couple of years. We had a situation where through a pandemic, this corporate giant received more corporate welfare than any other entity in Australia. That over $1 billion in taxpayers' money was for the purpose of people being connected to their employment. And the thanks that Qantas employees get and the way that Joyce used that money was to go around and sack over 2,000 ground staff about 18 months ago. Illegally. It was found illegally. Now, on top of that, these flight attendants and cabin crew who flew into Wuhan and other areas to repatriate Australians, this is before the vaccines existed, so putting their livelihoods and welfare at risk for the sake of bringing Australians back, are rewarded with the termination of their agreement. And let's be clear about what termination means. You have an agreement which sits up here, which is negotiated over many, many years of collective bargaining, decent wages and conditions, the sort of wages and conditions we've come to expect in a decent society that we're proud of in Australia. And then you have the award down here. What Joyce is proposing is to bring that agreement, which has been historically negotiated, down to award rates, which would effectively mean between 40 and 60% of wage cuts for these employees. That's the thanks they get. 90-minute notices for on-call rosters. In other words, we'll give you 90 minutes, sort out your affairs at home, try and fix up your childcare, organise your family because you've got to hop on a flight in 90 minutes. And cutting of rest breaks and safety standards. This is just atrocious stuff. And I think that the Australians looking at this would think, hang on a minute, this airline trades on the idea of the spirit of Australia. So you're going out there to the world portraying an ethos and value system that the Australian spirit is all about sticking together and enjoying life based on a good quality wage and good quality wages and conditions, and then you're turning around and sacking employees hand over fist, cutting their wages and conditions, and not even sitting at the table with them to negotiate. Now the unions are prepared and the employees are prepared to negotiate a fair outcome, but clearly what's happened here is that the CEO has gone out with a conscious, bloody-minded industrial relations strategy of putting out an agreement to vote that he knew would get voted down so he could use as a trigger for termination. This is the sort of stuff you'd expect in the United States, not in a country like Australia which values its workforce and wants to see decent wages and conditions. And I just say to Scott Morrison, who has a responsibility to step in here and pull his mate Alan Joyce, who he's running a protection racket for, pull him into line and get him to come to the table, negotiate with the employees and the unions for a fair and decent outcome. And we won't stop backing these people in until we get that outcome. Thanks very much.